Hello, my name is Jay Carpenter, and this is the Desert Blockchain Open House today on Saturday, March the 12th, 2022. We're running a little late. I'm sorry, that's my fault. 11:05 a.m. Arizona time, and we like to start right on time. So I was running a little bit behind my fault there. So thank you for joining. Today we're going to be talking about peacenfts.org, which is a new initiative designed to create some interesting and empowering paths to peace and using some innovative technology. So if you're not familiar with how these work, these are our open houses, which happen on the second Saturday of every month. And by the way, Randy, can you hear me okay? If you'd put something in the chat, I'd appreciate it. But anyway, on the second Saturday of the month from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., we have these sessions where the first hour is like a workshop. At around noon, we'll have some pizza coming in, and we'll turn off the live stream for some chat here locally, and then we turn the live stream back on around 1 o'clock. Now, the live stream doesn't go off. You'll simply see like a placeholder. You'll simply see a placeholder. Randy, can you hear me okay? If you could put that in the chat. Okay, great. Thanks. So 1 o'clock Arizona time, we'll resume with kind of an open conversation and so forth. We've got some folks here in camp, and we'll be having a conversation. So thank you for joining. Thank you for your interest. Now, we generally have a session on Saturdays, and the sessions on Saturdays, other than the second Saturday, are usually not announced, but we might start opening up some additional open houses and talking about this Peace NFTs initiative here in the upcoming months. So the other thing that's important is we are self-supported by the community. We have a citizen program, which is $10 a month, where you can join via Patreon and you get special benefits and so forth. And we're opening up some new benefits here soon, and some of them will be centered around this peacenfts.org initiative. So thank you if you are a citizen, and if you're not, I would ask you to consider becoming a citizen here. So let's go ahead and get started with the screen share. And so, all right, great. So hopefully you can see this screen share. Randy, can you see that? If you could put that in the chat, I'd appreciate that. And I'll just step through this. Shane, do you mind checking the live stream to see if it's, well, here, I can actually do that. Sorry about the. Okay, cool. All right, thanks. So what's this all about? This is an initiative that's designed to create a path for people all over the world to create expressions that are authenticated, that use this new technology, that assures that the content that you are getting is from the source that you think it's coming from. And this is a way for people to create expressions of, they're in the context of creating peace. It's also a way for people to get monetization for their expressions of peace. So in other words, to send money to folks that are creating these expressions to help support them. And in this case, in the first case, it's going to be focused on folks that are in or impacted by the Ukrainian conflict. But it's not just for the Ukrainians, it's also for people that are impacted that are connected to Russia as well. So the idea is that this will be a Swiss neutral platform and project that can have some interesting dynamics that's more of a carrot than a stick approach to situations like we have currently happening in the Ukrainian region. That's a conflict, basically. So let me kind of step through this and talk about some of the key points. And unfortunately, why is that not going away? Anyway, so peacenfts.org, and if you go to this site right now, it's simply a template. It doesn't have any functionality to it. And part of what we're doing today is to get some feedback on some of the dimensions of this proposal, see what people like, what they have questions about, and what maybe doesn't strike them in the right context and the constructive context that it's designed to be. So imagine that you're someone in the Ukraine, or somebody in the Ukraine, you're actually Ukrainian, and maybe you're living in the United States, because this will start with just Arizona folks that are from the Ukraine or connected to the Ukraine, as well as folks that are impacted and connected to or from Russia. So it's designed to cover both sides, but because of regulatory issues and that sort of thing, and because we want to kind of prototype this and get make sure that it's running smoothly, we're going to focus on people that are connected to the Ukrainian societies and Russian societies that are living here in Arizona. And we will have some additional sessions here at Desert Blockchain Camp where people that want to create these peace NFTs can actually come here, create them. We will help assure that the creation is from the people that you think they're from, and we'll help with some of the mechanics of setting up wallets and that sort of thing. So imagine that you could, let's say that you have relatives that are in the Ukraine, or you are of Russian descent and you are interested in fostering peace in this conflict situation. Imagine that you could create some sort of media. Maybe it's a collage, maybe it's a piece of music, maybe it's a video, and you would like to post that for other people to see, other people to understand your desire for peace in this situation. You can actually do that through this platform. We can help you create the content. We can help you. We will actually take on creating this in a way so that everybody can be assured that it's an authentic piece of content, and assuming that your piece is passes the curation phase. And AJ, would you mind muting for just a few minutes while we're going through this. So assuming that your expression of piece passes the curation phase, and we haven't totally set up what the criteria for that will be at this point yet, but if it's posted, we will then place that content through this cryptographically secure, I call it a digital envelope, otherwise known as a non-fungible token. We will place that up for auction, and people can actually buy that authenticated content from you, and you will receive, as the content creator, part of the proceeds for that are derived through the auction. So the third point, as I've already talked about, is the authentication of the artwork and your expression of piece. And that's created in a decentralized construct, which I'll be talking about. And we're going to be using the Stellar ecosystem, Stellar platform, and I'll be talking about what Stellar is and so forth. And then I'm also asking that we open it up for conversation, because I'm going to make some proposals about how the monetization might work, how the proportioning of the auction proceeds works, and how that can go forward that will create yet additional interesting dynamics to this. And you'll notice on a lot of these slides that there is a placeholder in the text, and that's simply as a note that there could be additional items added as this thing moves forward. You can consider this presentation as a draft. And hopefully the idea today is to get some valuable feedback so that we are moving forward in a responsible fashion. And we've hopefully thought of the various dimensions of this, and to make sure that this is handled in a responsible way and delivers the intent that it's designed to deliver. So let's go through and take a look at some other items. So this is a bit of a high-level view in terms of, you know, when we have a conflict that's going on. So, you know, in a situation like a military conflict like we have in the Ukraine, we see soldiers, and the point of these two images is to bring forth what I assert is the default way that human beings deal with people that they don't really know, and particularly people that are considered a threat to them. So what do I mean by that? What I mean is that you know, soldiers, other people that are basically designed to look identical to one another are basically people that we tend to treat as objects. So in other words, the images that you see here, one soldier looks almost identical to the next. It's hard to appreciate that these soldiers, which are people, are actually not only people in themselves, but they're also connected to communities. So either one of these images, the Russian soldiers being on the left and the Ukrainian soldiers being on the right, you know, you tend to dissolve, or you don't think of them being connected and always having communities and other people that they are connected to and that they sort of are tied to. Now, so the part of the dimension, a dimension of this project through Peace NFTs is to give people an opportunity to express their relationship to not only the soldiers that are involved in and impacted by this conflict, but also the other people that are impacted and living within this conflict. So what do I mean by that? So this image appeared in the Wall Street Journal, front page of the Wall Street Journal yesterday. And it represents to me an embodiment of the tragedy that we're looking at. Here's a mother touching the face of her son as if he's alive, and you can see the grief and the angst in her face. The soldier's father is standing behind her, struck with grief, cannot bear to even look at what the horror that's before him. And then the other part is to the left, you see a member of the clergy that's there, designed to or intending to bring some sort of spiritual resolution, spiritual element, some sort of solace to this grieving mother and father. This is an image that embodies, in my view, the relationship dimension of what happens in a conflict like this, the horror of it. So part of these peace NFTs is an opportunity for people to bring forth the relationship dimensions and the depth of the impact that this conflict is having. So here is another example of the relationship nature of a conflict like the Ukrainian conflict. This appeared a couple days ago on Apple News, and I believe it's only available on Apple News. But if you can listen to this, I recommend you listen to it. The Ukrainians have set up a hotline, if you will, or a line that Russian people can call to find out or get information on their Russian soldier loved ones. And part of this recording is a mother who's struck with grief and terror about what's the status of her soldier son. And then there's another relative that's recorded making comments who is Russian and living in Florida. Now, what's the point of this, and why does this matter to NFTs? The point is that when you have a conflict like this, one side is claiming that this recording and could be claiming that that image that we just looked at, the funeral of this soldier, one side is going to claim that this content is not authentic, that it's staged, that it's propaganda. How do we know? We don't know. And, you know, clearly, whenever people are in a conflict like what we're experiencing and observing in Russia, and I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt myself and start a recording. Sorry, this is recorded on the YouTube live stream, by the way, but I like to record it on through the Zoom as well. But so part of this, showing the image from the prior screen, which is whoops, this image. If you are on the opposing side, you will try to make the case that an image, this image or images like this are staged, that they're not real. And how do we know? We don't know. The recordings that are presented in this news item, if you are on a certain side of the conflict, you will make the case that this is staged, that this is propaganda and designed to stir certain emotions that are against whatever your cause is. So the point of this new innovation, this what I'll call a digital envelope called a non-fungible token, the point is that these non-fungible tokens, NFTs, I think offer an opportunity to add an element of authenticity that hasn't been available in the past. And that's what we're actually exploring. That's what we're innovating around with this peacenfts.org initiative. And by the way, the name of this project might change here in the next week or two. So don't get stuck on the peacenfts.org piece of it. So let me step through this. This is just a slide with basically notes for additional pieces to add. Let's talk about some of the financial elements of this innovation. So non-fungible tokens, in addition to adding a higher degree of authenticity and trust, also offer an innovative way to monetize, to distribute funds for various parties in a situation like this. So imagine that I am the relative of a soldier on either side, Ukrainian or Russian, and I'm interested in creating some sort of artistic expression designed to demonstrate my desire for peace and possibly, who this soldier is for me in my life. And let's say that I'm in the Ukraine and I'm suffering from a lack of, I can't work, I don't have food, I might not have shelter, I might not have any of the ways that I've supported myself and my family available to me from the past because of the chaos and the destruction that's going on around me. These non-fungible tokens, through this new form of value transfer, might offer a financial lifeline for me and my family, in addition to a way for me to express my desire for peace and how this conflict is impacting me and my family, my community, my loved ones. So in this situation, these non-fungible tokens might offer a way to transfer value and then parcel value among various entities and actors, let's say, in this conflict situation. So the distribution sort of highlights some of these actors, some of these participants that might be recipients of this value transfer. Number one is the creator of the expression, and after the token is auctioned, then there becomes what's called what I'm calling a current owner in this situation. So that's whoever has the private key, the active current private key to this non-fungible token. The second actor, let's say, or participant in this process might be an authenticating organization. Now, what might that be? Well, it might be part of the clergy. It might be a trusted source like, let's say, the Ukrainian Catholic Church or the Russian Catholic Church. And there's no guarantee that they will be willing or able to participate in this. It might be the Red Cross. It might be some other entity that's acting in somewhat of a trusted, somewhat of a neutral fashion to basically say, hey, look, let's take me for an example. Or initially it's going to be like the folks here at Desert Blockchain Camp. But let's assume that there's some authenticating organization that has a certain degree of trust and objectivity. And let's assume that Jay Carpenter is of Ukrainian descent, has a relative in the Ukrainian conflict, and Jay Carpenter wants to create one of these expressions of peace, artistic expressions of peace that will be housed within a non-fungible token. For the starting embodiment of this, Jay could come to Desert Blockchain Camp, create a collage, maybe create a video, maybe create a piece of music, maybe a writing, and that could be put into this digital, I'll call envelope, called a non-fungible token. And then the structure here at Desert Blockchain Camp could add their indication of authenticity that, yes, Jay was actually here. We think that Jay is who he says he is. And we put our indication of authenticity as part of this non-fungible token. The other part is the countries involved. So at this point, we have two countries. We have Ukraine and Russia. A portion of this, the proceeds from the auction of this non-fungible token, could be put into an escrow account for the respective countries. Let's say it's going to be split 50-50, such that if the conflict is peacefully resolved, that portion of the funds from the auction could be released to the government. You might think of it as like a tax revenue, or maybe it's going to go towards rebuilding or whatever. And there's some other dimensions of this country's portion of the auction proceeds that we can talk about later. The fourth piece is the organization that's going to be running this, and I've got it listed as peacenfts.org. And let's assume that that is an entity that is going to be stewarding this, running it, and will have expenses, and that this is going to be operate like a vendor that will be for profit. And I realize that that will likely cause a certain portion of the people watching this to pause. And we'll talk about that in a bit. So there's also a section of terms, how's the submission of the NFT, how does that happen? How's it curated? What are the elements that go into providing the authentication? How is the identity going to be associated with this non-fungible token? Will there be a public disclosure of whoever created this non-fungible token? Will there be an agent that represents the creator of the non-fungible token? Could be an attorney, could be the clergy, could be the Red Cross, we don't know. And then could the creator of the content be represented, at least for a period of time, under an anonymous hash? So I won't talk about the details of that, but basically that's the most private method of handling the identity of whoever created this expression of peace. So we can talk about those in a bit as well. Let's shift a little bit to Stellar. I've mentioned that we're intending to use something called the Stellar Network. It's stellar.org, if you're not familiar with it. And I'm going to assume that everybody watching this is completely unfamiliar with Stellar. Why are we using this, or why have we chosen this project called the Stellar Network and the Stellar cryptocurrency, which is called Lumens? Why are we doing that? Well, it turns out that Stellar has several dimensions that are like tailor-made for this project. Number one is Stellar has been picked by the Ukrainian government to help them build their national digital currency, or central bank digital currency, as it's called in many areas. Stellar is also, and I'll advance the slide. Whoops. I'm going to go into the additional material. By the way, that portion of the presentation is designed to be almost like an executive summary. This next section is designed to be kind of a collection of various items that you can go through, you know, but are not necessarily part of the core presentation, because this could get to be very voluminous. So hang on. Okay, so this is taken from the Stellar website. Basically, you can see that Stellar is designed for cross-border payments, and it's designed to send money around the world to people around the world that may or may not have a bank account at a very low transaction fee. And we'll probably talk about why it's a low transaction fee versus other platforms like Ethereum or Bitcoin. Here is the Wikipedia page on Stellar. It goes into some details. But one of the most attractive things about Stellar is the people involved with Stellar. So this is a fellow named Jeb McCaleb, who is very early in the cryptocurrency and blockchain space. He is a programmer, has an impressive body of technical skills. Forbes says he's worth about $3 billion. The Wikipedia page says he's worth about $20 billion. Suffice it to say that Mr. McCaleb is passionate about making a difference for humanity. He obviously does not need to work. His commitment, his passion for Stellar and making a difference for people around the world is, in my view, genuine. He's driven by making an impact, and he has a skill set that is impressive and rather rare. Another person that's involved with Stellar is David Mazzeres, and I'm guessing almost zero people watching this know who David Mazzeres is, but he is a noted computer scientist who's on the faculty at Stanford. He has a very impressive background, and Professor Mazzeres has created what's called a consensus algorithm that I've started to gain an appreciation for, that is very impressive, that offers many of the advantages of decentralization without some of the drawbacks, such as proof of work mining and other more expensive ways to reach consensus. Another person that's involved with Stellar is Danelle Dixon, who comes from Mozilla. She also has a very impressive background, and she testified or spoke to Congress recently about the prospects for this new realm of decentralization, cryptocurrency, blockchain, and so forth. And here's a little video. Now, this video has some commentary by the person who edited the full congressional video, and I caution everybody that commentary is that of the editor of the video and doesn't reflect Desert Blockchain or peacenfts.org. So here is an interview with Jeb McCaleb from epicenter.tv from a few years ago, and he talks about some of the background related to Stellar and also how he connected with Professor David Mazzeres to build the foundation of this construct. This is simply the logo, and that's pretty much it for the presentation. And I'm going to open it. Oh, here's another item that I skipped over, but this is really, really important. This is by a fellow named Dan Pallotta, and he talks about, the title of this TED Talk is "The Way We Think About Charity is Dead Wrong." And he makes, in my view, a very strong case for the notion that charitable organizations and nonprofits, their desire to reduce expenses as much as possible is actually detrimental to the overall intention and mission of the nonprofits. And if you watch this and if you follow up on some of the projects that he has been involved with, you will see that what he lays out as his case actually turns out in real life. The amount of money that charitable organizations can raise and the amount of good they can do can be many, many times what a nonprofit that's trying to completely cut everything to the bone, has no sort of incentive mechanism associated with their nonprofit and charitable endeavors. This is a video that has made a huge impact on me. This is the father of Christina Green, who was a 9-year-old whose life was taken in the shooting of Gabby Giffords down in Tucson in 2011. Christina went to see Representative Giffords speak and unfortunately was a victim of the violence that happened there. The point of including this video in this presentation is that the father, John Green, in my view, makes one of the most moving and eloquent and heart-wrenching expressions of forgiveness and expressions for peace that I have ever heard. So the reason that this is included in the presentation is to highlight an example of what might come forth from peacenfts.org, and just, in my view, a very moving example of the human, resisting the human inclination to lash out, be angry, be vengeful, and so forth, and actually be grateful, be forgiving, and be, in a communicate in a context of constructiveness. So I'll go back to the very beginning of this. All right, so that's the presentation. Again, this is a work in progress. And what I'm hoping to get from the folks that are here today, the folks that are watching this recording in the future, and the folks that are joining us via Zoom and online, and also I haven't checked to see who's on YouTube, but if you're on YouTube, please feel free to type in the chat. And let's see. And we've got about 15 minutes or so. Okay, great. So it's open for conversation. Randy, AJ, you should be able to unmute now and say anything that you would like to add to the conversation. And again, this is all recorded, so whatever you say will be part of the public recording and documentation of this. So, any comments? Bryce? Oh, good to see you. Yeah. We just had pizza arrive, so.
Oh man, wish I was there.
Yeah, next time, AJ. So AJ, let me introduce you because you've been a participant with Desert Blockchain for a number of years, and you've presented and so forth. So AJ is an attorney who's, I acknowledge him because he was the youngest attorney or youngest graduate ever of Arizona State University, Sandra Day O'Connor College of Law. AJ is knowledgeable in the blockchain decentralization area and has spoke to our group. So anything come to mind for you, AJ, after viewing this presentation and so forth?
I mean, I'm really glad to see a artistic application of NFTs that is, more humanitarian in nature. I think that's just a really great thing to see and a really great potential use. The first thing that springs to mind here is the contractual elements, which I think is going to lie at the heart of this, especially because we're going to be dealing with monetary transfers across international borders, which can be, what's a good word for this? Dicey sometimes.
Hey, AJ, do you mind going on camera?
I had a camera. My camera has ceased to like me this morning.
Oh,
sorry.
Yeah. That's fine. Thank you. So yes, the cross-border elements of the value transfers, I'll call them, instead of money transfers, I'm going to call them value transfers. That is a delicate situation, shall we say, because of the evolving nature of the regulatory realm, as well as the sanctions that are in place. And yeah, and you're in a better position to speak about that than I am.
Yeah, it's not just sanctions that come to mind. It is simply the fact that we are dipping into international law. For people not familiar with the legal space, law changes. It changes even between states. There are things that could be illegal in one state that aren't illegal in another state.
My parents have invited us.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
The work doesn't stop on the weekends. But it changes from state to state, and then it very much changes from country to country. So this would require some individuals with an expertise in international law, and additionally, ideally, local counsel in any forum where we would intend to expand this service.
Agreed. And, you know, AJ, my plan at this point is to connect, and I've already reached out, and some of the folks I'm going to be talking about might be viewing this as we speak, but I'm starting to network with some of the people that live in Arizona that are either of Russian or Ukrainian descent, or have, you know, strong family and loved one ties to Ukrainians and Russians. And so I think, at least at the outset, the activities of this initiative can be confined to Arizona. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. I guess my first question would be, of those contacts, and I know you have many, Jay. How many of them are familiar with the law in those areas? How many of them are legal contacts?
Well, I've got some pretty strong legal contacts, not necessarily of Russian or Ukrainian descent, but, you know, and I consider you to be one of them. But the actual people that I'm talking to that would be, you know, invited to create this artistic expression of peace, I don't think any of them are attorneys. Is that what you mean?
No, I mean, yes and no. I don't think the artists also need to be lawyers. If we were looking for artists who are also lawyers, it would be like
A, we'd
searching.
have a pretty small community, and B, I'm not sure I'd be really that interested in the art.
Gee, thanks. I'll have you know I'm a decent creative writer.
Wow, that I'll give you.
But
Your pencil person sketch is another story.
see what I have to put up with. Anyway, but what I'm saying is it's good to have artists who are like closer to the Russia-Ukraine conflict, who can kind of put that emotion behind their art and behind their work and inject it with that meaning. But me being boring and looking at it from a purely practical standpoint, I don't know how to write a contract that is compliant with Ukrainian law. And is anyone here familiar with the GDPR?
Yeah, I am. I'm Bryce. That's kind of what's going through my head right now is the GDPR.
Yeah, so Bryce is here as well, and you went to ASU Law as well, right?
No, I didn't go to ASU Law.
Oh.
I just go there. I'm a freelance litigation paralegal. So,
Okay.
Yeah, the GDPR is a big thing that any lawyer, paralegal, or vendor has to know about, because Europe is the golden standard for privacy. We don't have any concept in this country. There's the privacy law in California, which is dicey with data transfers. And data transfer, or using someone's data, it's a cell phone, is an NFT transfer, would be a token transfer to them. So the GDPR is something where if you wanted to yank like a Dropbox account or something out of someone from Germany, you'd have to send or get in touch with what's called a data protection officer in Germany to see what the requirements are for that particular state. It's going to change, you know, when you go over to the next country. And they are the golden standard that it really shook up a lot of things in this country with a fellow named Schrems who's running around over there, and he is taking things up to their highest court level with, you've got to, because he's greatly worried how data is being used here in the United States and analyzed. So, you know, Europe has a strong privacy background because of the Cold War, World War II, and whatnot. So some people in Germany are down to the fact that they own the rights to their,
There it goes.
some of their some of the mechanical stuff that they use, and they think that they, deserve money for, driving around in cars and
Mhm.
collecting money and stuff. So GDPR is something to be wary of. Because, are you dealing with Ukrainian GDPR? Are you dealing with the country that they're in, seeking refuge?
Well, let's, if somebody's receiving a form of compensation for this artistic creation, could there be a clause in the structure of this where they basically waive their GDPR rights?
I don't know if that's really possible. I mean, it's getting so ingrained in the culture and stuff. But that's where you have to have, if you're going to collect from over there, it's known as having boots on the ground over there. Like you have to know someone.
It wouldn't be collecting, it would be more like transmitting.
Transfer is the big deal.
Yeah.
So.
And I didn't bring up the GDPR
What's
just
that?
because oh, sorry, am I not loud enough?
No,
you're fine.
you are loud enough.
Oh,
Go
and I
ahead.
got my camera working. I didn't bring up the GDPR just because I was worried about the GDPR. I brought it up as an illustration because when the GDPR came out, a slew of companies changed their online policies and contracts and things like that. And they did so because of the concern that they would touch a country that complies with the GDPR and would get hit with a lawsuit or get in trouble. And the risk here is that if we craft a contract that is going to touch and cross international borders, we have to make sure that it complies with all of their law. Because if we dip into a jurisdiction in which we are not compliant, we are still liable. I can't speak to whether a waiver provision like Bryce suggested or like you suggested is, sorry?
I don't think you can have a waiver. I don't know if it's possible to have a waiver.
Well,
I couldn't say.
not necessarily a waiver, but a hold harmless, whatever it is. It seems to me that if I willingly publish, some sort of content into the public domain, how can I possibly later on say, okay, withdraw that? So anyway, we're not going to solve all these issues, but I mean, this is a great point. And as you said, AJ, this is only an example of the types of dimensions to deal with here. So
Yeah, I will conclude my statement with there is a reason that studying international law is a profession and not a pastime. It is robust enough that there are lawyers who only do that and make a living off it.
yeah, well,
Can I add something?
Sure.
There's a really good resource, the International Association of Privacy Professionals, IAP.org. And it's just a really rich, robust resource. I encourage everyone to actually become a member and join it locally. It's a great privacy by design type of group of people. And I know you'd be able to get on there and look up all these local countries or the specific countries and see what the rules are. I know Russia has a real tough data privacy, regulation. So China passed a really tough one too. So I'd be worried about what data is going in there, and are you going to mess with someone in there inadvertently against those laws? Because they're tough, where they don't want anything transferred. Sometimes in Russia, outside of servers, outside of Russia. So that's where I think if you start to research it, the IAPP is a good starting point, and they'll have everything on there.
Okay.
So my 2 cents, by the way.
Good.
Don't quote me on this, but I have a friend who is really involved with it. I think she may have been like one of the founders or just very, very deeply involved with that organization, who is an absolute expert encyclopedia authority on privacy. I could see if she's willing to talk to me about this.
Well, it's a critical point. It's only one of the dimensions of issues to be aware of, at least, and to, if possible, bake in certain conditions and terms into the structure of this. So yeah, this is just the first conversation, first kind of public conversation of this. So by all means, AJ, if you know of other expertise that could take a look at this and weigh in on it, that would be awesome. So
Yeah, I need to reach out to her anyways. All right. Well, yeah, we will definitely continue this conversation.
anything else? Anything about the, let's say, I'm going to call it, for lack of a better term, but the monetization to an entity that's, some might construe as for profit?
Not really. I mean, that would take some reading, I suppose, on my end.
Well, so Shane Sandler, who's a first camp counselor here at Desert Blockchain Camp, came across somebody else tried to do some NFTs related to the conflict in the Ukraine, and it apparently sparked a big storm of controversy about profiteering on and warmongering or whatever. So I get that. That I can appreciate somebody looking at this and having that point of view. At the same time, I think that if this thing is going to have longevity, if it's going to have momentum, if it's really going to be as effective as possible, there has to be a viable, sustainable revenue stream for this to assure the continuity of it and the power of it. So that's my view. And this is actually, unlike most of the non-fungible tokens that are out there that are running, in my view, purely on speculation, and there is some revenue component to a lot of these non-fungible tokens, but this is truly a closer to an operating structure than most of the stuff that I've seen in the past. So, any other thoughts? I don't see any comments in the YouTube live stream. Anything else? Well, let me talk about the next steps as I see it. This is the first conversation designed to air, the dimensions of this, get feedback, hear what legal minds would say about this, and start to generate additional thoughts, additional dimensions, and so forth. One of the next steps, there's two basically, well, three, maybe more, but number one is I'm interested in inviting some people that are connected in a fairly intimate way with the Ukrainian and Russian cultures and communities and so forth. I'm interested in having them come in and create some sort of expression of peace that we might be able to put into at least a prototype NFT here. That's number one, and I've reached out to some folks, made a preliminary effort to connect with them and get their thoughts, their input. So that's number one, and I think we can confine that to Arizona, by the way. Another dimension of this is to continue to build out the infrastructure, the website, show people how to create some wallets, do some actual non-fungible tokens that can be stood up as examples, and just continue to explore what's possible with this technology. One of the dimensions that you brought up, AJ, and that Bryce has brought up is in the GDPR realm, maybe there's a kill switch. Maybe there's a way to destroy an NFT. I don't know, but that's something that we could take a look at. So the plan is to schedule some sessions, not necessarily on Saturdays, and let's assume that our next Saturday, which would be what, the 19th, will also be devoted to this, and we will invite some folks to come in and create some sort of artistic expression and see what comes from that invitation. So let's assume that next Saturday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. will also be devoted to this, and it will be an opportunity for people to come in and create something that's in the context of this initiative. So that's it, basically building out the infrastructure, making connections to the appropriate communities, also exploring what entities might be willing to participate as authentication organizations, like religious organizations, like charitable organizations like the Red Cross and so forth. So those are some of the things that we can explore with this. Any other thoughts or comments before I turn off the recording and we go into the lunch hour? Well, we're a little bit over. Thanks for the extra time. I'm sorry I was late getting this off the ground. And we will only have the recording on YouTube when we open this back up at 1, but because I'm going to turn off the recording here internally. So stay tuned. If you want to follow along, you can join on meetup.com/desert-blockchain. There's a whole bunch of resources that are in the notes to this YouTube live stream that bring you to this presentation and so forth. Please let me know if you have any comments. My contact information is jcarpenter@desertblockchain.com or jcarpenter@peacenfts.org. So thanks AJ for weighing in, and let's see what we can create. All righty. I didn't hear you, but
Thank you for the invite. It was good.
all right.
Catch
Awesome.
you later. We can catch up more in person, perhaps sometime, Jay, and hammer out details and
Cool.
detail.
Yeah, I'll follow up
Yep.
with you. Thanks, AJ.
Yeah.
just this open 1 o'clock part. And this is, well, this is recorded because it's on YouTube. But,
My only worry is I don't know enough, that I might miss some. I don't
well, that's part of the process
know. Okay.
because 99.9% of the attorneys out there are not going to know what we're talking about.
We still would need an attorney though or something.
Well, we got an attorney
Yeah.
in all likelihood. And this would, I would envision this to be a collaborative thing because I've got at least half a dozen.
Well, I gotta start learning this stuff to apply to litigation support, so this is
Yeah.
a good way to jump in.
Well, I've got at least a half a dozen law students that are chomping at the bit to get into blockchain.
Like
So
any angle. or-
anything,
Yeah,
and it could be couched as an internship or.
so we could almost wrap this up in there possibly.
Mhm.
Yeah, that'd be great to work with some law students, young minds, that would be great, some positivity.
Well, and, I've presented at the law school multiple times and I've said, hey, this realm, it has some opportunities for new paths, new revenue streams for attorneys.
Yeah,
This would be a great example of one of
no, it is. Have you ever read the book Crossing the Chasm?
them.
Oh man, it's so worth the read. I read that too. It's about bringing new projects and like so. Oh yeah, that's a bell curve, but there's actually a little chasm where the upkeep is. And some gets too innovative. You have to wait a little bit to fund it. So this is almost a crossing the chasm
Mm.
type. In Silicon Valley, championed this crossing the chasm for years and years ago. It works.
Well,
This is new ground.
this is new ground and, I don't know what kind of content is going to surface from this.
Yeah.
But if it's compelling content and, we've seen less compelling content go for massive prices, right?
Sure. This is content with art. on it.
Yeah. And timely.
Yeah, we're trying to change art minds.
Mhm.
That always raises artistic cost. or
Right.
value.
Well, and the beginning ones are going to be, if it has viability, they're going to be historic, right?
Yeah.
So being in on the front of this is going to have a certain value component to it,
Sure.
right? Hey, Randy, I don't know if you tried to say anything, but I turned the speaker back on, so you can talk as well. So, yeah, this is great because this has added a new dimension that probably would have been overlooked or not even thought of. And I think it solves multiple elements. So we can bake it in. We can bake in two things. Number one is inviting at least 2 or 3 people that would fit the realm of creating content, and then invite representatives for them.
Which would be maybe me and some of these legal.
Yeah, you and AJ, and then, like I said, I've got 4 or 5 students, law 1, 2, or 3 Ls that I think would love to start to play with this. And they could also do papers on it.
Oh,
So
yeah, no, that would be huge for them.
it'd be huge for them. They're looking for internships and all that stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
no, I can help, I'll help out with that.
And then Shane can basically have a class for, okay, here's how you can set up a wallet.
Have some of that already.
You've already got-
Make an edit of older streams, having to do it again and do it in person kind of thing, but yeah, we can really cut together a quick video edit of like the stream where we did it to make the wallet, and then that would be something that would be my responsibility. And
Yeah.
coordinating some of the law students to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we could do that on the Raspberry Pis or
Mhm.
whatever. Actually, I've been using Stellar X, which I'd like to stay with the Stellar pieces for the beginning, everything from the Stellar Foundation.
Stellar X isn't technically, it seems like it is. It's Stellar X is through Ultrastellar, which
Oh.
was like part of the for-profit portion of Stellar.
Mhm.
And then they sort of branched off into their own company. So they're also they're pretty much the like longest standing, like they have extremely close ties to the Stellar Development Foundation.
Whatever.
My
It's,
only qualm with Stellar X is that it doesn't have a mobile friendly option.
mm,
It's a PC only.
Well-
But the same company, Ultrastellar, is the ones who make Lobster, which is the app that I read.
okay. Well, for simplicity, for purity, I'd like to stay with whatever is as close to the Stellar Development Foundation as possible. So that we're not introducing any kind of, cloud over whatever the pieces are. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
So there is technically a laboratory wallet through Stellar Development Foundation. It isn't very beginner friendly. And it definitely isn't mobile friendly. And so the next closest thing is the Ultrastellar products, which is Stellar X.
Yeah, let's do the Ultrastellar's close enough.
Yeah.
Because that's when you hit the start,
Yeah.
that's what comes up. Anything that you hit start,
Yeah.
something comes up is close enough.
Ultrastellar is deeply related to the
Yeah.
SDF. It's just sort of the for-profit portion.
So for you, Rob, since you've invested, a couple hours in this thing today, I would ask you to follow along. You can access this in Puerto Rico through the Zoom and the recordings and whatever, but I would ask you to give us some feedback on what's attractive, what's not attractive from an investor standpoint on its NFTs. Does that sound reasonable? Then you can or can't, but that would be an opportunity for you from an investment standpoint. You might want to buy some of these NFTs, assuming they come together and they fulfill at least part of the intention. That makes sense?
Right. So are you gonna try and almost create a hype with before the auction goes off of these things, where it's like an event? A lot of people.
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not really that focused on the promotion side of it. My view is that if the intentions start to be fulfilled, I mean, you've got some pretty incentivized, close-knit communities with the Ukrainian community and the Russian community, that if this thing starts to satisfy some of their needs monetarily, as well as, expression needs, and it starts to have some sort of impact on the actual conflict, I mean, those are some pretty compelling drivers to the thing.
Is it just to raise revenue basically, or just awareness? Or
Both.
Oh,
It's equal. It's ideally, people are going to, both investors as well as the creators, as well as the authentication organizations, as well as the agents, will see an opportunity to create, significant and substantial revenues from this thing. But at the same time, it will start to have an impact on what's happening on the ground as well.
sure.
I mean, that image that I showed of the mother at the funeral, that's pretty compelling. The image a few days before that in the Wall Street Journal, where you get 3 dead bodies on the ground with a suitcase sitting there, a child, a mother, a woman, and a man, probably a family trying to escape, and in an instant they're gone. That had a big impact on me.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, similar to the C-17 taking off from Afghanistan with a kid falling from it. I mean, those are images that bring the humanity to the forefront of this otherwise impersonal object to object horror, right?
Yeah, it's too bad you couldn't tag something in there too with an image, like, so how do you, is there a way to connect the people too, you know, to talk, so they could communicate with someone in Russia?
Well,
Are these only going to be just static images?
well, no, that's part of the opportunity set is, especially if you have this trusted agent, it's foreseeable that, I mean, we play with some very cutting edge and powerful peer-to-peer communications constructs, both video, audio, data, all of that stuff.
Because I was thinking, I was just, some of my news feeds were showing me how business is booming for like online education to keep some of the kiddos, you know, their classes going when they're seeking refuge in these other places. So I didn't know, you know, if you had something like.
Well,
that.
absolutely.
And so
Charlie,
maybe these kids can reconnect with their community. Maybe some of them are in parts of Poland and they're different parts of NATO countries, and maybe somehow you can connect, you know.
well, A, that reduces the pain they're experiencing, and B, it builds the interrelatedness and the connectivity, which moves the spectrum over to peace versus
Humans, you know, trying to, humans trying to connect and interact.
Yeah. So, and we have at least one and probably several education focused and centric participants in this group, especially the core group.
Something else to think about.
Yeah. Absolutely. So,
I have a minor in teaching English as a second language, so that's always.
oh, really?
So it's close to my heart.
Well, there's another dimension to this that we haven't talked about, which is called global citizenship. Because you can actually, with these decentralized blockchain constructs, one of the use cases is becoming a citizen in multiple countries. So Estonia has their e-residency. They were one of the first. But some really interesting dimensions open up if you think, hey, for a certain amount of money, I could become a resident in Malta. And I could also be a resident in, you know, the Isle of Man. And then I just kind of morph throughout the year or whatever and declare my different citizenship based upon what's going on within the countries, with the economic, the tax, the political environment is. Now, all of a sudden, you have a new level of sovereignty competition that wasn't there before, which is real. It's like Arizona competing with Texas and Wyoming to be at the forefront of the blockchain space. Imagine that same choice, only on steroids, among the global sovereignties.
Choose your state, your country, based on how well it's doing. Yeah, that would make the leaders think a little different.
Well, I've said multiple times in multiple contexts that there's a head-on collision happening now between the legacy sovereignties and the decentralized constructs.
Yeah.
And this GDPR is just one dimension of that collision. Because people are intentionally loading like the Bitcoin blockchain with personal private information as a direct snubbing of the GDPR.
Sure.
Because that can't be erased.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
So Anyway. So yeah, if you're willing to,
I mean, what's the time frame on this? Isn't really hearing, this is just, you're just starting to think about it. Next few days or-
yeah, but the time frame is immediately.
Okay.
Yeah, and we might very well convene before next Saturday.
Okay.
And we, you can also join via Zoom,
Sure.
but I think there's going to be some big advantages to being here in person. And we have designed this space to be, and it's not built out yet, but we've designed certain components and architecture of this space to be conducive to an agency situation like this, where people could meet in private both visually from a sound point and from a secure electronic transmission standpoint.
Oh, that's important. So,
Yeah, so that we can set up spaces where you're assured that you can't be electronically eavesdropped upon. So anyway, gotta get busy on that, Shane.
We got some booths to build.
So, well, Randy, do you have anything? I don't know if you're listening in.
Yeah, I'm
But-
good. No, I'm just listening in.
Okay,
Sorry, my air conditioner's going in the background here.
all right. Anything you want to add before we wrap up the Zoom and the?
No, let me know if you guys decide to have another meeting in person. I'll be able to show up next time.
Well, you can count on it for next Saturday.
All right.
And depending on how things come together, we might have something before then.
Sounds
Okay.
good. Yep.
All right, thanks for joining. I don't see any comments in the chat. So we'll wrap it up.
All right. Thanks. Talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.